95.9 KCKL Malakoff, Athens, Champlain Country, 95.9
95.9 KCKL, good morning to you, East Texas. I'm John, and we got some special guests in here today, Brett and Shai. All right, well, just wanted to fire off again. Anyways, we got Brett and Shai and somebody else, Curtis.
Curtis Webster.
How are you guys doing today?
Good, John.
Good.
Thanks for having us.
Doing great.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah, I want to say happy Groundhog's Day to everybody and good morning. And I know this is my favorite day of the year for marmots. And while I still do not know how much wood these woodchucks can chuck, I know that everyone was anticipating two famous groundhog predictions this morning of whether we would have an early spring or not. Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow, and he predicted 6 more weeks of winter. But I know what Southerners are more interested in is what General Beauregard Lee had to say. Regrettably, he also saw his shadow, but unlike his northern counterpart, the general did not let this get him down, as he enjoyed his favorite breakfast of scattered, smothered, and covered hash browns from the Waffle House. The general also informed me that with the housing market being so good this year, he decided to get in on the action and into his new home in Dawson Trails on Monday. He'll be spending the rest of the winter renovating his new home and preparing for spring, where he can finally see how much wood he can chuck. If you or any groundhog you know are looking to buy or sell, you can always give us a call.
So it sounds like this morning that General Beauregard Lee spoke eloquently the truth from his fine southern mansion, while Punxsutawney Phil, the marmot of northern aggression, just happened to concur.
Yeah, well, we're gonna stick with the Lee's prediction.
We're going to stick with General Beauregard Lee because we're going to go with this housing prediction that it's going to be another good year of housing.
It's going to be another good year for housing. But this morning, more importantly, we would like to welcome Curtis Webster. He's been assisting clients in our area for many, many years on buying and selling of commercial property. And we'd just like to say hello, Curtis.
How y'all doing?
We're doing good, thank
Doing
you.
good. Glad to have you.
First thing we want to ask you is, what is the difference between residential and commercial real estate?
There's a vast difference between commercial and residential. Commercial, you have to consider such things as zoning, traffic counts, other types of things when you're looking at commercial properties. When you buy a commercial property, there's a couple of things that are real important. Number one, you may want to consider a phase 1 environmental, which is an environmental which the specialist checks out who the neighbors were, what uses it was, and so forth. And then if that is necessary, that they think there's some problem, they'll follow it up with a phase 2 environmental, which is soil borings and things like that, to make sure no chemicals or gasoline has filtered into the aquifer below. And then when you're considering a commercial property, the zoning includes such things as office, shopping center, fast food services, and other type of commercial uses. And that's what the national credit tenants and also local people are looking for, is to expand their business or put a location that makes them some income to pay the debt service. As far as a commercial loan, when you're thinking about buying a commercial property, you talk to a local bank or even a national bank, they're going to require that you put a minimum of 20%, 30% down. It will be a 5-year loan, but they use a amortization schedule, i.e. a payment schedule, as if it's a 15-year loan or a 20-year loan, depending on your credit status, your financial being, and so forth.
Okay, the first thing you mentioned was about the city zoning. Could you describe a little bit of difference between the types of city zoning for commercial properties there?
Yes. A shopping center, they take into consideration the amount of square footage in the shopping center to require the number of parking spaces you'll have. They usually have a traffic engineer consider how many cars ingress and egress out onto a public road to see if it's determined that there is a requirement for a deceleration loan, or in Gun Barrel City's case, They consider that, example, coming out of Walmart or some other, there's a Starbucks opening, and they considered all of the things involved with possible wrecks and things like that.
You mentioned the city of Gun Barrel there. What are some of the city regulations and ordinances they have on these types of properties?
Well, they require that certain things be done. For example, on a shopping center, they will consider things like, and requirements like you do use the Americans Disabilities Act to do your parking, i.e. have a certain number of parking spaces for handicapped people. They'll consider the height restrictions, usually on a shopping center. In order to, from a developer standpoint, you consider 10,000 square foot per acre of building, which is maximizing the site. But they also consider minimum and maximum regulations of the amount of square footage and building footprint that you're putting on the land.
Yeah, we know the one of the differences between residential construction and commercial construction is that residential is used for a living space and commercial is usually used for commerce. Could you tell us more about, could a residential space be used for commercial property?
Generally, no. If there's zoning, you cannot use it for residential. I know in the past I've had people call and ask about a commercial building. Could they live in there? While their example would be a retail operation with the living quarters upstairs. Most cities will not allow you to do that.
Okay. Another thing about it, you were talking about some of the conditions you need to get checked out when considering buying a commercial property. Could you explain a little bit about the commercial property condition statement?
Yes. The seller's disclosure property condition, it is required that the seller fill out a seller's disclosure disclosing everything they know about that property, i.e. Things such as, was there any cleaners or any type thing? Was there part of it in a flood zone? Things like that.
So this sounds a little more extensive than your typical residential seller's disclosure statement.
Yes, it's much more extensive. I know that whenever you're apply for a commercial loan, for example, a shopping center, you want to do a feasibility study of some sort. You want to do a marketing study that tells you how many vacancies of strip center space and other type retail ancillary facilities are there, and what the vacancy rate is, what the retail shopping center lease rates current and what's realistic, and then you want to figure as a developer how much pre-leasing that you can do. A good lender is going to require that you have a certain amount of that prospective shopping center pre-leased, either by leases or generally it's by leases before they'll loan you the 70 or 75% of appraised value. Now, it's like the similarity between a residential and a commercial is pretty much in the lending of a lender takes the sales price or the sales price or the appraised value, whichever's less, to make their 70% or 80% loan to value ratio.
Okay, and you're saying, but if I'm not ready to purchase commercial property at this time, I am able to lease commercial property?
Well, yes. And as a landlord or owner of whether it's office or shopping center or whatever, the owner is going to make sure, or should make sure, that you give them a credit report, and in some cases you can get your own credit report on freecreditreport.com. But they want to look at your financial statement. They're going to want to know that you're able to lease that space and stay in the space during the term of the lease. They also are going to consider if they have to give you retrofit money or finish out money, that you're able to stay in that space so that they don't have to turn around and release it and tear out the improvements that they have given you money to retrofit the space and then lease it to someone else.
Okay, you're talking about leases. Does that have anything to do with something called a net lease?
Yes. There are several type of leases in in commercial. You've got a gross lease and a net lease. In some cases, the landlord does a gross lease, which is, it considers all of the things the landlord wants to get, includes the tax and the insurance on the building, etc. And usually the smart landlord will have an expense stop or specify in that lease that if the taxes go up, the pro rata share of that increase will be charged back to you as the tenant. There's a net lease which the tenant pays the payment of the lease, and in addition to the payment, on top of that, he pays what's called a triple net, which is a tax, insurance, and CAM, or common area maintenance. The landlord figures what that is per year when he leases it to someone, and then he tacks that on top of the regular rental payment, so that the landlord is looking at net money for his portfolio.
And while we're on the subject of leases, I've also heard something called a lease back.
A sale with lease back.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, if a landlord wants to stay in a property, for example, we have a shopping center, actually it's a restaurant, furniture store for sale, and when a seller sells that property and he has a business in that, he wants to, and the purchaser looks at it from the perspective of, is that a profitable business, and that tenant, that landlord that's selling that business, selling the shopping center, is going to stay in there. The seller gets the money for the shopping center, but agrees to leasing back a space that he occupies for a certain amount of years, so that the seller is actually getting his money for selling the property, but he has to stay in a portion of it or all of it in order so the purchaser can pay his debt service and so forth.
Okay, and you're talking about a restaurant here in a leaseback situation, and typically with a restaurant, there's lots of equipment, maybe tables and things like that are involved that could be left behind. I know in residential, typically we have the furniture, the main furniture of the house is generally taken with the client when they sell the property. But some things stay attached to the property, such as if you had a window unit that was screwed into the window, or a refrigerator that was hooked to a water line. Could you tell me something about what a fixture is in commercial real estate?
Sure. A fixture is there's a difference between real property and personal property. Real property is attached to the building in some way. For example, a walk-in freezer in a restaurant stays with the property. The separate property that the seller usually takes is his computer system, his table and chair, his office table and chairs. If the seller sells say for example, he sells a restaurant and he's going to leave the furniture, there's a separate price for that, and he also may have inventory, which he does an inventory list and puts a price on that, and agrees to sell that in addition to the real property.
That's very good information today about commercial property. And I want to also ask Shai, do we have any good commercial properties out there today for sale?
Yeah, we got some great commercial opportunities today. One of them is at 2526 West Main Street in Gun Barrel City. That's just west of Legendary. If you're looking to start a business, this is a great place to get that startup going. You got 4,869 square feet. It's fully equipped restaurant, including kitchen equipment, tables, and chairs, new electric and alarm system, and that's going for $135,000.
That's a steal of a deal right there in the heart of Gun Barrel City.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity if you're wanting to get into the restaurant industry right now, right here before the summer kicks off. That's a great one to take a look at. Also on that one thing people might be interested in, with the right qualifications, the owner is open to considering owner finance on that property.
That's a great deal. Not many commercial businesses come up with a chance for owner financing.
No, that's pretty rare there, but that's a great thing to take a look at if you're wanting to get into a business.
Might be one to jump on there.
May I interject something on that?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
absolutely.
The seller is also willing to, at closing, give $15,000 to the prospective purchaser to do some retrofit, and there are some improvements that need to be made in the interior of that space. The equipment needs to be cleaned, etc. So the seller is willing to, for the right buyer, to give them $15,000 at closing to do anything to that vacant restaurant.
Wow, $15,000, that'll go a long way towards getting it just tuned to the right kind of business you're looking to start from there.
Yeah, because that makes a difference in getting those doors open for that business you're wanting to get going there. Mm-hmm. All right, the next one we got is just north of Payne Springs, just north of the bridge there into Gun Barrel. It's a 2.89 acre spot, and it's an ideal location for a strip center, retail, or offices. This property backs up to a channel, so you could have access by car or boat. Curtis, what's the price on that one right now?
It's just been reduced to $298,000. As I recall, it was listed at $399,000. The landlord, or the owner, excuse me, wants to reduce and get that sold. He's got his last child in college, and as everyone knows, it's very expensive for a college education. That particular site has a really, really good traffic count. And like Shai said, it does back up to a channel. Originally, the channel was dredged, and he put in a retaining wall back there. So if you wanted to have access from the lake, depending on the depth of the lake, like most anything around the lake, you could do that. It's also at the corner of Harmon Road and Gun Barrel Lane, which means a fast food restaurant could locate on the corner, and then the strip center could be located on the rest of it, so that there's plenty of access for that fast food service. And generally, they all want a corner somewhere, and this is an ideal location. It has a corner for them to come in and out and do a drive-through window.
That's a great location right there by Lakeview Acres.
Yeah, and those corner pieces in commercial real estate, they're not the easiest thing to acquire all the time.
No,
and
only so many of them around here.
yeah, there's only so many, and they do add that extra edge over just one that's just straight road frontage there. Mm-hmm. So that's a good one to check out today if somebody's interested in some good commercial. We also have one at 19120 Highway 274 in Kemp. This property has it all. Could be used for your home or your business. Brick and frame building. It has 2-bed, 1.5 bath, and is currently used for a residence on the corner of 274 and 3396. There is access from both roads. It's got a 30 by 40 metal shop with 2 bay doors, RV hookup, 8-foot wrought iron fence around the whole property, and it's about 0.69 acres. That's going for $162,500.
That's a good deal. I know it had been previously used as a car lot, and with that extra tall wrought iron fence, it would help if somebody wished to open up a car lot again to help keep them protected in there.
Yeah, that's good for overnight car storage there, and just getting that business going. And then we have one that's 1.32 acres of prime commercial property located in the heart of Seven Points at 631 South Seven Points Boulevard. That's the same as 274, just south of the intersection there in Seven Points. It's got frontage on both Highway 274 and Waller Road. The property features elevated sign poles, multiple road entrances, gravel driveways, West Cedar Creek mud, water, and sewer. $50,000 for that one.
That's a great deal as well.
Yeah.
I know today I want to thank Curtis for coming in here and giving us some more information about commercial real estate for some of these investors that are looking to get out and start a new business this spring.
Yeah, we'd like to thank you, Curtis, for coming in.
You're very welcome.
And so thanks for sharing your knowledge. And if they want to get a hold of you, Curtis, how do they get a hold of you?
My cell phone is 903-477-4066, or they can call Coldwell Banker Direct and ask for Curtis Webster. Our 800 number, if you're calling from Dallas or wherever, is 800-594-7993. Local is 903-887-7055.
And how do they get a hold of you, Brett?
You can call me or text me anytime at 903-340-6301. And if you want to catch up on some shows you may have missed, just go to my YouTube channel and be sure and hit the subscribe button.
Sounds great. And we'd like to thank John for having us on this week.
Yeah, no problem. It's always fun having you guys out here. Oh, I always learn a bunch of new stuff whenever you guys are here. Kind of help me out maybe in the future.
Okay. Yeah, we appreciate it. Look forward to it future weeks.
No problem. All right, folks, you're listening to 95.9 KCKL, and we will be back shortly with some more great music and the Trading Post.